When asked to describe this movie, director Robert Eggers used the same choice of words in every interview. Nothing good can happen when two men are trapped alone in a giant phallus. Let's talk about The Lighthouse. But before we do, welcome back to my channel, everybody. The Haunted Beard is all horror and thriller movie content coming at you. But listen, do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard. So The Lighthouse tells the story of two lighthouse keepers who try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. And this is one of my absolute most favorite movies of all time. My favorite subgenre within horror is the psychological horror film. And The Lighthouse is the epitome of everything I love about psychological horror. Every aspect of this movie just radiates authenticity, which leads to a totally immersive experience. Let's talk about the cinematography, because practically every single shot in this movie is memorable and sears itself into my brain in some way or another. I just so much enjoy just simply looking at this movie from a visual perspective, from the black and white to just the high contrast lighting, just these thick, deep, and dark shadows and bright lights, and the shot compositions. And as I said, in practically every shot, there is something visually interesting and captivating that is going on. I also love the fact that Eggers chose to shoot this movie in the 1:19 aspect ratio, which is basically just like a perfect square. And it just really leads to the sort of isolated and claustrophobic feel of the movie, where darkness is surrounding you on both sides and it is closing in. The production design in The Lighthouse is also fantastic. Everything was built specifically for this movie, and it just feels so real. The lighthouse and their little cabins feel like real, actual sets. They feel like they're lived in. They look like they're something that has been there and has existed for hundreds of years. I've said on my channel before, but I typically love single location films, and especially ones where you get a real sense and feeling of isolation. Oftentimes that single location film gives a bit of a feeling of a stage play, and I just really like that type of presentation, and you get vibes of that here in The Lighthouse as well. But also, to speak to the production design, the details in this movie are what help set it apart. And just everything that Eggers uses to create an authentic feel within the production design. And just little things like the shot of Willem Dafoe writing in the logbook with his thin wireframe glasses. I love that there's a shot where he's talking to Pattinson and Defoe's in the background knitting something. And it's just these little details and little things that Eggers adds into the movie that just help create that authentic feel to it. Also, I think the scene where Pattinson is painting the lighthouse and he's sitting there on this pulley system where Defoe is having to lower him down on this pulley system with just a rope down this lighthouse so he can paint it is just another detail that, again, just adds to the authentic realness of this movie. The music and the sound are also fantastic and just contribute so much to the atmosphere. The sound design in and of itself is a character in this movie. It certainly has as much impact to the film as the actual characters do. It is as loud and brash as they are. It is abrasive and obnoxious, and it's also unsettling and eerie. I'm going to make a bold statement, but I think that The Lighthouse is this generation's Eraserhead. Obviously, there are plenty of differences, but I think there are a significant number of similarities between the two films. First and foremost, and the obvious one, is the black and white, but also the importance and the impact of the sound and the sound design within both films just, again, contributes so much to the atmosphere. Also, both films are quite bizarre and very surreal, and just the overall ambiguous nature of their stories. The performances by both Dafoe and Pattinson are simply fantastic. The way they both deliver this old English dialogue is just so real and believable. And these are two pretty much like A-list, well-known Hollywood actors, but they both just completely disappear into their roles. The physicality, the commitment, the unhinged mania displayed by both men is captivating and just a pleasure to watch. I have a smile on my face throughout the majority of this movie because it is just such a joy to watch it all unfold. And their performances are one of the main reasons for that. And also just the writing and the dialogue contribute to that authentic and immersive experience. There are just some fantastic scenes of dialogue that is delivered in this movie.
A bulging bladder no more, but a blasted bloody film now, a nothing for the RPs.
But it also has humor as well. But the humor adds to the madness. It adds to the insanity. It doesn't take away from any of the atmosphere. Oftentimes, comedic elements within horror films can be detrimental, but not in the case of The Lighthouse. It just adds to it all and makes it more crazy and bizarre.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
Drunken in a Virginia fence.
I seen it. You're fond of me lobster.
I can't help but think of like the character of the Joker, who's a Joker. He's laughing all the time, but he's laughing because he's insane. And it's that type of laughter that we get when watching this movie. It's dark and weird type of humor, but it just really works and adds so much more to the movie. I've heard some people complain that this movie is pretentious, and if that's your honest opinion, that's totally fine. But I will stand by this movie and say, how in the world can a film that has fart jokes in it be pretentious? Eggers does not take himself too seriously. He knows how absurd and crazy and ridiculous this whole thing is, and he proves it by injecting a very bizarre, wacky, childish, immature, crude sense of humor throughout the film, but I think it just complements it so well. Never have I heard some of the most immature, adolescent, and gross dialogue
Like hot onions fucked a farmyard shithouse.
Mixed in with some of the most rich, creative, authentic, and poetic dialogue in the same movie.
You murdering dog! 'Twas ye what changed the wind on us. 'Twas ye what damned us, dog. 'Twas ye!
Willem Dafoe has two monologues in this film that feel almost biblical. There is an intensity and weightiness to the words.
Bid our father the sea king rise from the depths full foul in his fury, black waves teeming with salt foam.
I could go on and on about the technical aspects of this film, but I want to spend the rest of the video talking about my interpretation and what in the world is exactly going on here. Ambiguity and mystery are some of my favorite elements in any movie, but that's why I like psychological horror so much, and The Lighthouse has plenty of both of these. I love kind of putting on the investigator hat, if you will, to try to put the pieces of the puzzle together to figure out what is going on or what a movie is all about and what it's trying to say. So here's just some of my personal thoughts as far as how I understand and interpret the movie. Robert Pattinson's character, Ephraim Winslow, is running away from his dark past. He is harboring a dark secret and is filled with guilt. In his previous job, before he became a Lighthouse wickie, he was a logger, and he allowed a man to die by choosing not to act to save him. We learn in the movie that the seagulls represent the souls of the men who have died at sea. And the seagull that is harassing Winslow, I think, is the man that he allowed to die on his previous job. He is there to remind Winslow and torment him. But Winslow can't face the truth and face his guilt, and so he kills the seagull. Then finds out it's bad luck to kill a seagull. This in turn causes the winds to change, and he unleashes a curse upon both men. Now, what do these characters represent? Well, this is where Eggers brings in Greek mythology into this story. I would recommend watching this film with the subtitles on because it is easy to miss some of the dialogue, especially in the two scenes where Dafoe is delivering his two big monologues. But if you pay close attention to those scenes and pay close attention to those words, both of those big speeches, I think, give some real insight into what this movie's about and what these characters represent. In Defoe's speeches, particularly the one towards the end of the film where he's being buried alive as he's dying, he mentions two mythological characters, Proteus and Prometheus.
Oh, what protean forms swim up from men's minds and melt in hot Promethean plunder.
Proteus is the prophetic and wise old man of the sea. He knew all things, past, present, and future, but particularly disliked divulging what he knew. The word protean is derived from Proteus, and it means to be changeable in shape and form. Willem Dafoe's character, Thomas Wake, is Proteus. He is the prophetic, wise old man of the sea. And again, if you pay particular attention to both of his big monologues, they are prophetic in nature. He more or less predicts the ending and the outcome of the film.
Send the souls of dead sailors to pick and claw and feed upon.
This also explains why he is able to shapeshift into the tentacled-like creature. And if you look at a picture of how the mythological god of Proteus was depicted, it looks a little similar. On the other hand, Robert Pattinson's character, Ephraim Winslow, is Prometheus. And Prometheus was a seeker of knowledge. Pattinson seeks the light in the lighthouse. I think the light that he seeks represents knowledge or enlightenment or omniscience. Prometheus was the god of fire. He defied the other gods by stealing fire and delivering it to humanity to help them advance and develop and progress in civilization and knowledge. But Prometheus's fate is not a good one, as he is caught and condemned by Zeus to be chained to a rock where an eagle flies by to eat his liver for all eternity. This gives us a pretty similar comparison to how this film actually ends, only instead of it being an eagle, Winslow's body is feasted on by the seagulls, the souls of the dead sailors and those lost at sea who are now finally getting their revenge. These two characters are engaged in a battle of mythical proportions, and this explains the sort of power dynamic and power struggle that they are both engaged in. Essentially, they are playing a game of King of the Hill, where Defoe's character is the King of the Hill. He has ascended to the top of the lighthouse, only now Pattinson is trying to ascend, but he keeps getting pushed down the mountain, down the hill, down the lighthouse, by Defoe's character, unable to rise to the top. Here's a quick excerpt from Defoe's final speech as he's being buried alive by Pattinson, as this really kind of summarizes and concludes my final thoughts on the film. Here's what he says. "You wish to see what's in the lantern? So did me last assistant. Oh, what protean forms swim up from men's minds and melt in hot Promethean plunder, scorching eyes with divine shames and horror." If you remember the final shot of Pattinson, his eyes are scorched and burned. He continues and says, "And casting them down to Davy Jones. The others still, blind, yet in it see all the divine graces, and to Fiddler's Green sent, where no man is suffered to want or toil." Now, in doing a little bit of digging, Davy Jones refers to the pirate term Davy Jones' locker, which was a term that was used when somebody was lost or died at sea. I think this represents hell. On the flip side, he uses the term Fiddler's Green, and this was a term that was used in maritime folklore to describe an afterlife. For sailors, a place of happiness, a fiddle that never stops playing, and dancers who never tire. We seen that at some point in the movie, didn't we?
Come on, you'd like to whip through here? How are we going to whip last year?
And I think Fiddler's Green represents heaven. So in the pursuit of knowledge or enlightenment or omniscience, it can lead one to hell or heaven. And I think in Pattinson's case, it leads him to a very disturbed and messed up hellish ending. So those are just some of my thoughts on The Lighthouse. Look, I absolutely love this film. It is one of my all-time favorites. I think it's a masterpiece. I will never get tired of watching it. It is fantastic. So that's all I got for you in today's video. Hit me up down below, though. Would love to hear your thoughts on this movie, how you interpret it, what you think is going on. Would love to hear from you. Let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. That's all I got for you, and I will see you next time on The Haunted Beard.